There's a story running your life. Not a metaphor, not a concept. An actual, specific narrative with characters and rules and a ceiling that is quietly shaping every decision you make, every risk you take or don't take, every version of yourself you allow yourself to become. You didn't choose it consciously. You absorbed it. From a failure that felt final, from a voice in childhood that never introduced itself as optional, from a fear you mistook for wisdom. So many times, it started to feel like self-knowledge. Most people spend enormous energy trying to change their behavior, their habits, their results, without ever going one layer deeper to ask, what story is producing this behavior? And today, using the ground framework, we're going to find yours. And then we're going to rewrite it, not with affirmations, not with positive thinking, with something more honest and far more durable than either. Let's begin. Before we go excavating, I want to make sure we're clear on what we're actually looking for, because limiting belief is a phrase that gets used so often, it's started to lose its edges. A limiting belief is a false mental barrier, self-imposed, about who you are or what the world will allow you. Not a fact, a conclusion. The distinction matters enormously. A fact is fixed. A conclusion can be revisited. A fact requires acceptance. A conclusion requires only evidence, and evidence can change. Here's the part that most people miss. A limiting belief doesn't feel like a story. It feels like self-knowledge, like you've done the honest audit, and this is simply what you found. That's not honesty. That's a story that has been told so many times, it no longer sounds like a story. This is where the ground framework begins. The G, gather. Come back to yourself first. Before we go looking for beliefs, we need to understand where they come from, because that understanding is the beginning of compassion. And compassion is the only thing that actually dissolves a limiting belief. There are 3 primary origins for most limiting beliefs. The first is fear, a threat, real or imagined, that your brain encoded as a rule to protect you from repeating something that hurt. The second is past failure, one event that felt so final, your brain decided to treat it as a forecast. And the third, and perhaps the most pervasive, is early conditioning, a voice, a comment, an atmosphere in a room you grew up in that told you, implicitly or explicitly, what kind of person you were and what kind of life was available to you. Here's what I want you to hold as we go into this. None of those origins make you broken. Every one of them was a form of protection. Your younger self was doing exactly what it needed to do to navigate the world it was in. The work now isn't to judge that. It's to notice when you're still navigating by a map drawn for a world you no longer live in. This is where the ground step reflect comes in. Looking with curiosity, not criticism. Because before you can question a belief, you have to understand why it felt so real. Here's the neuroscience in one sentence. Your brain has a confirmation bias. It actively seeks evidence that confirms what it already believes and quietly filters out evidence that contradicts it. So if your belief is, I'm not someone who succeeds at things like this, your brain will find every piece of evidence that confirms that story. Every stumble, every comparison that doesn't flatter you, every person who didn't respond the way you hoped, and it will quietly minimize the evidence that contradicts it. Every win you brushed off, every skill you took for granted, every time someone told you you were more capable than you thought, and you changed the subject. The belief isn't lying to you. It's protecting a story it decided was true, and it's very, very good at gathering the evidence to prove it, which is why you can't simply think your way out of a limiting belief. You must go looking for it, deliberately. That's what we're about to do. The first exercise is the belief excavation. This is the ground step open, releasing who you think you should be long enough to see who you've been telling yourself you are. I want you to pause the video here and do this in writing. Even rough notes count. 3 prompts. And I want you to do what the card says. Pause the video and write. Not in your head, in writing. There's something about putting a limiting belief on paper that removes it from the position of authority it holds inside your mind. It becomes a sentence. And sentences can be questioned in a way that ambient beliefs cannot. The first prompt, I'm just not someone who. Write every ending that comes. Don't edit, don't soften. The belief you're most embarrassed by is probably the most important one. The second prompt asks you to look at your patterns, where you consistently stop short. The limiting belief is usually the story underneath the pattern. And the third, what would you attempt if failure wasn't possible? This one cuts through all the rational justifications and gets to the belief underneath them. Whatever came up for you, hold it. We're going to use it in the next exercise. This is the ground step, understand. Knowing yourself before you try to change yourself. Because here's what most self-improvement gets wrong. It tries to install new behavior over an unexamined belief, and the belief always wins. Not because you're weak, because the belief is structural. It's not a bad habit. It's the architecture the habit was built on. You must go to the architecture. Now the rewrite. And I want to be very clear about what this is and what it isn't. This is not positive thinking. Positive thinking says, replace the negative belief with a positive one. Decide to believe something better. Fake it until you make it. That doesn't work. Not because positivity is wrong, but because your brain requires evidence. It's the same confirmation bias loop working in your favor now. A new belief only takes root when it has evidence to feed on. Let me walk through each step. Step 1. Name the belief as a sentence. The more specific it is, the more workable it becomes. I'm not good enough is too vague to challenge. I'm not someone who can lead people effectively is specific enough to find evidence against. Step 2. The counter evidence. This is not about finding the 3 best things that have ever happened to you. It's about finding 3 moments, however small, where the limiting belief wasn't true. The time someone followed your direction. The time you handled something you didn't think you could handle. The quiet moment where you exceeded your own expectation of yourself. Those moments exist, even if your confirmation bias has been quietly filing them away. And step 3, the reframe. A more accurate story based on evidence is not what I wish were true, not what I'm trying to believe, what the evidence actually supports. This is the ground step, develop, letting growth unfold from who you actually are, rather than who you think you should be. The new story doesn't have to feel true, yet it has to be defensible. That's a much lower bar, and it's the right bar, because once you have a defensible story, your brain has something to build on. The confirmation bias starts working in a new direction, and the story, slowly, incrementally, begins to feel true. I want to spend one more moment on the distinction between what we just did and positive thinking, because this series is built on honesty, And if we dress up a toxic positivity exercise in ground framework language, we've done something worse than nothing. Positive thinking asks you to feel differently about yourself. The story rewrite asks you to see yourself more accurately. Those are very different requests. One requires performance. One requires honesty. And honesty, even difficult honesty, is always more sustainable than performance. I want to leave you with something that I think is easy to miss in conversations about limiting beliefs. The goal isn't to destroy the old story. You can't. It's part of you. It was written for a reason. It protected you when protection was what you needed. The goal is to write a new one that is more accurate, more current, and more worthy of who you are now and who you're becoming. Both stories can exist. You just get to choose which one you're navigating by. I want to leave you with the ground reflection question for this week. What story have you been living that a braver version of you would question? Sit with that, not to answer it immediately, but to notice what comes up when you do. Because the story you're most reluctant to question is almost certainly the one most worth writing differently. You have been carrying stories that were given to you before you were old enough to know you had a choice. This is you knowing, and knowing even when it's uncomfortable, even when the rewrite feels uncertain, is the beginning of everything. The page is blank. What you write next is yours.